And welcome back to the Weekly Tech Rant with me, Jay.
And me, Carl.
Hang on, Carl. It's. Ooh. And yes, we are at episode 100. And I think I've just deleted something off the soundboard, but I'm not going to
Oh
know what
no,
that is
not
until I
again.
check. Oh, it's stupid interface. But anyway, we've hit episode 100. Actually, we also just did a Twitch check before we came on air. We've discovered actually we've been going for 2 years, haven't we? We
We
kind of
have.
missed that. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
you're
how we
not
missed
paying
that.
attention there.
We weren't paying attention, but yes, episode 1, which was called, I titled episode 1, Welcome to the Weekly Tech Rant, and it's a heat wave. Well, that's a common theme. So
That
2
wasn't
years
as
ago.
hot, was it?
No, it wasn't at all.
I had
So
a quick
two.
listen to the podcast and it said, "Oh, it's 30 degrees. It's too hot." And little did we know we were going to hit 40 degrees 2 years later.
Oh, I go. So on the 31st of July 2020, the first episode of the Weekly Tech Rant dropped, and it was a 36-minute episode, and we talked about a few different things. So on our list of subjects, we had down season 2 of The Boys, which hadn't come out yet. It
Yep.
was Discovery season 3, again, which hadn't come out yet. Flight Sim 2020 was in alpha release, and there was more
I was
invites
testing
getting out.
that. Yep.
You were getting that. There was some pre-release info and pics that we could see, but we weren't allowed to talk about. And there was talk about VR support for the HP Reverb at the time as well. How things have changed, eh? What else do we have? Yes, Apple earnings call for Q3 of that year was snappily titled, about how businesses can ride the COVID storm, because, unbelievably, at that point 2 years ago, we were 7 months in? No, not quite, maybe 6 months in, weren't we, to COVID, and the pandemic, the
Yep.
lockdowns, and, quite frankly, the end of the world as it felt at the time, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think you were having 1 or 2 issues with your home lab.
Yes, I think
I think
there
you
were
changed a few times since then. I think that was with Proxmox, and then you went to vSphere, and now you're back on Proxmox.
Yes, episode 3, which was where was that? We quickly check. Episode 3, which was back on the 16th of August. So yeah, actually, that was almost 2 years to the day. That was talking about that, and that was about moving from Proxmox to ESXi. And I said I did a U-turn, and yep, you're right. I've gone back again to Proxmox. And also that time I talked about the Sony XM4s that I picked up. Which
still
I'm still
going
wearing
strong.
now. They are awesome. They're the best headphones I've ever bought. I was tempted to go to the 5s, and I was like, what's the point? There's nothing wrong with these. And also at that point, we were also talking about the iPhone 12. And the Apple One, and the Apple One bundle service, which I've been rocking that as well for 2 years. So things were going differently, and things of the theme there around the talk about the tech stories, talking around latest technology. I think we've pretty much kept to, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
So 2 years on, what are we talking about? Well, this week we have got another mixed bag of tech stories, information of Zoom. We've got Signal breaches. We've got Quest, Meta, Russians, iOS 16, because back then we were talking about iOS 14, really, weren't we?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about planes as well this week, which is, I guess, a bit of a secret, hobby of ours. But anyway, so kicking off then this week's first story, it's Microsoft then. Oh, Carl, Game Pass, and Sony.
Oh, yeah. It's an interesting one. So Microsoft are basically claiming that Sony pays developers not to put their games on Game Pass. And this has kind of come to light via Brazil's their national competition regulator as part of their review of Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. So Microsoft basically saying they continue to expand Game Pass, but it's been hampered by Sony's desire to inhibit such growth, and Sony pays for blocking rights to prevent developers from adding content to Game Pass and other competing subscription services.
First off, I'm not going to say this is rubbish, because I think there's stories about this in the past. What's amusing though is that this has come out of the Brazilian competitive regulator.
It is. It's because theirs aren't behind closed doors, are they? They publish all the supporting evidence so the public can view it.
And they did, and there's a Word document that's been published, and I don't speak or read Portuguese, so I was struggling a bit with that. Thanks Google though for some helpful translation pieces there. But yeah, you're right. It's a very transparent process, and it's around, isn't it, the the Administrative Council for Economic Defense, or SAYARD,
Something
which
like
is
that.
around, yeah. So, and they quoted, wasn't it, that Microsoft quotes, sorry, the quote from Microsoft, trip over my own words, is Microsoft's ability to continue expanding Game Pass has been hampered by Sony's desire to inhibit such growth. Okay, what games then do we think are being blocked here?
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure they are either. It's clearly going to be. It's nuanced, I'm sure. You know, I wouldn't put it past Sony. Sony do like an exclusive. They like exclusives a lot. But yeah, I imagine some of those things were in place before Game Pass. Some are just probably just standard clauses in contracts with current developers. Yeah, I don't know where I sit on this one.
I think this may have happened a lot more in the past. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily think, as you say, it's happening all the time now. I'm not writing it off. Don't get me wrong. I'm
No.
not suggesting it never happens or hasn't happened. But given the amount of, just the amount of games that Game Pass has on it, I can't. There aren't that many titles that Sony are, I would say, holding back. There's most of the Sony exclusives, isn't there? Things like God of
Yeah.
War, Gran Turismo, just to
Yeah.
name, but I guess a couple there, obviously. But what else, realistically, could be held back? Nearly every major title comes out on Game Pass either day one, or if it isn't day one, it's not that long after. I mean, let's take Sniper Elite the other day.
Yeah.
That was a day one release, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah.
With that, there's plenty of other things coming out. I mean, there's a Commandos 3 HD remaster, isn't it? Which is another big title coming out. That's going to be on Game Pass as a HD. It's HD. Yes, it is HD. As a day one release again. But I can't. I just don't get what what the argument here is that Sony are not.
Don't know, but I suppose this is in their defense, isn't it? This is all not really to do with the game streaming or Game Pass. It's to do with their acquisition of Activision Blizzard, and so yeah, they're just putting out what they can. I imagine there was quite a few interesting bits that came up in that document, weren't there?
Yeah, well,
Yeah, Sony are claiming that it would be difficult for other developers to create a franchise that rivals Call of Duty, and that it stands out as a gaming category on its own. Yeah. Of course, Microsoft disagree with that one, and they've highlighted competition as things like Apex Legends, Battlefield, PUBG, and more. And they're even going to say, just because they've put Activision Blizzard stuff in their Game Pass does not impair the ability of other players to compete in the digital game distribution market.
No, I'd argue Sony's point there was ridiculous, because Battlefield on its own, out of all those you listed, Battlefield's the one that stands out as a one-for-one competitor in that franchise point. And we all know how terrible the last one was. But, Microsoft have been very clear from day one, haven't they, that they are not going to remove games from PlayStation. And
No.
why would you shoot yourself in the foot and remove that from how many millions of sales from PlayStation, especially COD?
I mean, they just went on to tell you, distributing games like Call of Duty, rival console stores would simply not be profitable for the companies to stop it. But they said, a strategy of not distributing games on rival consoles would only be profitable if the games were to attract a high number of players over to the Xbox ecosystem, resulting in revenue to compensate losses for not selling titles on rival consoles. Basically saying, it's just not going to happen. It won't make us enough money.
Not at all. No way. And also, it pays Microsoft to have an open ecosystem. It also for them to have crossplay as well, because you can start to generate other licensing there.
Only if Sony want to do crossplay.
Well, that was my next point. But Sony have really been the ones there to kind of be like, nah, not playing that game, haven't they?
Yeah.
Crossplay across the different software platforms it's in nirvana, isn't it? It's what we all want, because who wouldn't want to jump on and play regardless of where you are? I do. The fact we have that with Xbox, I think, as we've talked about before, is one of the key defining things around that Xbox ecosystem.
It is. We play a lot of co-op games, don't we? Which are available on Xbox and PC, and cross-play between the two. And I can just play it in the living room. If the big team in the living room is busy, I just come in the office and play it on the PC. It doesn't bother me where I play, because I can play.
Exactly. The bottom line is they are as bad as each other. This is not a one-off or an isolated. This is a tit for tat statement. and Sony are on the back foot massively, and they have been for the
Sure.
last 18 months, I think, since the Series X launch.
Yeah.
And Game Pass has proven that the PSN or PlayStation Store, whatever the situation you want to call it, it doesn't have the same draw or the same, I don't know, clout. Is that probably better
Yeah.
statement, isn't it? That a Game Pass does. And Sony don't have the money either. That's the other really big issue here. They don't
Yeah.
have the deep pockets that Microsoft have to swallow up studios left, right, and center and own complete and utter uh, sways of the game market that we have there, including those
Yeah.
franchises that were mentioned above. But
No, exactly. And I think, there would have been people who were PlayStation have jumped to Xbox, like yourself and our other friend, actually, who jumped to Xbox because of the new systems, because of Game Pass and the value proposition there. But I think by now, the people that are going to make the move have made the move. The rest of them are going to stay PlayStation. So, yeah, it's not in Microsoft's best interest to chop them off because it can still make money out of them.
no, it's not. It's not. You don't want to do that. Sony need everything they can get at the minute. But this is a fight they're not going to win. But interestingly, where it's come from, you say the Brazil piece rather than any of the other big. I don't want to say. I don't want to say. First world nations. That's not the right statement, isn't it? But the more other Western nations, should we say, rather
Yeah.
than Brazilian. But transparency for the win.
We need more stuff being done in Brazil.
Yeah, clearly we do. That will keep us in stories for a long time. So, as it stands, then the Brazilian one is the first one that I guess you would say we've got news from. If that goes through, I guess that would probably give the FTC and the Competition and Markets Authority here in the UK less of a fight, I suppose. If somebody else waves it through, but it still could be a hurdle, couldn't it, for them in other countries? So it drags on, but according to Microsoft, they're kind of treating it that it's already happened. Really, you notice that all the market pretty much states that it's there, isn't it?
Yep.
Nothing to see here. Keep on moving.
Yep.
So, talk about gaming then. Well, not quite gaming, but from a GPU perspective, we talked at length the other week about the new ARCs, didn't we?
We did.
We did. The new ARC GPUs, and they've launched. And now Intel have released information on the workstations and Pro GPU units, haven't they? The Pro A40 and A50, both snappily titled. And there's also, isn't there, the A30M for laptops. Thank you. I knew I'd written down my notes. Couldn't read my writing again.
I'm a bit surprised at this. We've still actually seen the consumer GPUs, and now we're talking about a new line of not prosim, ones aimed at professionals, Blender, Handbrake, Premiere Pro, DaVinci, that kind of stuff. So it's a bit surprising. Whether we'll see any of these in the shops, I don't know. But you're right. They've got 3 models there. They're all going to have like hardware-based ray tracing, AV1 hardware acceleration for encode decode. 2 of them are very much the same. The A30M and A40 seem very similar. Apart from laptop and desktop, both are running 3.5 teraflops of processing power, 8 ray tracing cores. The only difference is 4 gig for the laptop one and 6 gig of GDDR6 for the workstation. But even the other A50 isn't a massive jump up, though, is it? I mean, it's 4.8 teraflops, and again, the same 6 gig of GDDR memory. So they're not bringing out the big guns here, I don't think.
No, this isn't going to. I don't think it's going to scare AMD or Nvidia back to the drawing board. Nothing at all. That point, it's a very competitive piece, though, isn't it? I think that's more of the market they're looking at here. The A50 was the one that kind of intrigues me. So the A50 is the dual slot version of it, isn't it? So more heavy duty workstation. Comes with along with all the specs there, the other 4 mini port. I hate that statement. 4 mini display ports. That's the one. But also supports, isn't it? Some interesting kind of lineup. So double 8K at 60 hertz, 5K at 240 hertz, 2 5K at 120 hertz, or 4 4Ks at 60 hertz. So not a pretty good output if you're running I guess architectural rig, or you're doing CAD or design work, or any rendering work. You're going to have a decent monitor setup there. Unlike M1 chips. Oh, sorry, I do apologize, Apple. I had something in my throat there.
Yeah.
And also, again, they've got full A1 AV1 hardware acceleration again. Intel's saying that's an industry first, but I didn't think that was. I'm sure we'd spotted that before. That wasn't quite true, was it? the A1 hardware acceleration.
Is it? But it's both ways. It's encode and decode, isn't it? I think Nvidia's do decode. I'm not sure they do encode.
Yeah, so the encoder, and I think earlier in the month we were saying about the A1 encoder was faster than the AMD and Nvidia at H.264.
Yeah, that was, but that's not AV1, is it? That's just H.264. That's different.
Yeah, sorry, but that was the A1.
Stuff.
Sorry, the AV1 encoder that's built on it. We're doing that, wasn't
Yeah.
it? I remember saying that. But are we saying so? But the fact that it's doing encoding and encoding and decoding in the same module, then, as opposed to just one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've got H.264, 265, 266, and AV1, and they're all different standards of encoding and compressing video files. So yeah, the one we were talking about earlier on was just encoding H.264 using the ARC chip. But yeah, the ARC chip also does encode and decode of AV1, which is, I suppose, the competitor to H.256. Oh, where am I? 266. But it's open source or royalty free, I should say.
Right. Okay. That was the bit that was going to get confused on. Okay. Fair enough. So the A30, then the mobile one, comes with was it 3.5? You said 8 ray tracing cores. I think it had 4 gig of DDR6.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Quite the power was there between 35 and 50 watts of peak power as well, which I think wasn't too bad. I mean, the kind of laptops that's going to show up in, isn't it? Things like the Dell. Oh god, I can't believe what they're called now.
The M range.
Yes,
M for their workstations, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they used to have a name, didn't they? Oh, brain's gone dead. I had it on my notes earlier. Not ProLiant. Oh, I used to have one.
Precision.
Thank you. I knew that. I was thinking tip of my tongue. It disappeared. Yes, the Precision lineup. That's the kind of ones I think about there, isn't it? And obviously things like the HP equivalents, the Z lineups as well. Look, I that's kind of thing you want. High end, heavy duty workstation laptops, isn't it? Running VMs and stuff like that. I was kind of tempted, by that A40 as a Quadro replacement, for the old Plex.
Probably the old server. Yeah, I wonder what the pricing is going to be like on it.
Well, that was where I was going to next. No pricing is available yet. We haven't got any indication of what that's going to be. Competitive? I don't know.
Probably on price. Who knows on performance?
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? Because as we've said before, the results from the ones that are out in the market already haven't set the world alight, have they?
No. Not at all.
So are we? I don't know. Maybe we're coming at this the wrong way. Maybe we are thinking Intel, bang, explosion, kick the doors down of the market. Woo, we're here. Intel, AMD thrown out the. Whereas it's more a kind of just quietly sneak up to the back door, step inside, and before you know it, where the hell did they come from? Kind of approach.
Maybe, but they're kind of mucking this up at every stage, aren't they?
well, yeah, I didn't want to say that, but yeah.
It's not been a successful launch by any measure, really.
The A380 was a kind of pinnacle of disaster there, wasn't it?
It was. Mind if it's cheap enough, maybe when I can fit one of those in the server.
Though I did see the A380 is now available. You can pre-order them in the US.
Who was it doing one? Was it
Newegg? Sorry, it was the ASRock Challenger.
ASRock, that was it.
Yeah, the rolls off the tongue. The ASRock Challenger ARC A380, 6 gig GDR6 PCI Express 4 ITX video card A380 CLI G6 OC.
How much?
$140.
Not bad, pricing wise.
That's quite competitive, don't you think?
Yeah.
Given its entry level.
Yeah.
Entry level, so GTX 1650, RX 6500, isn't it? Give or take.
3050?
Yeah. Well, not 3050. RX 3050, you mean? Yeah. Sorry, or no, 6500 I think was the one I saw somewhere. I may be wrong, but GTX 1650 at least. I know that was the Nvidia equivalent. So very much low end, but not, it's got four display connectors. 3 of them support DisplayPort 2, but the HDMI port is only 2B. So Not that that's going to
Yeah.
massively affect people, but yeah, $140 I thought was quite competitive. I wasn't too upset by that, personally speaking.
No. Wait till those benchmarks come out properly.
Bingo. I don't know when that's due for release, though. It just says back order.
Okay.
Doesn't state when that is going to release. Oh no, no, hang on. I've just done a quick Google. Is always friend. 22nd of August, apparently.
Oh, very close then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we should see, maybe in the next couple of weeks, we should see some benchmarks.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, moving on then. Moving on. So no, oh God, another breach, another problem, another release. But this isn't a new one, is it?
Oh,
Zoom.
Zoom. It's always you just don't install Zoom.
Well,
Somebody be able to
bit late
pawn
now.
your laptop, won't they, and get root privileges as usual. This isn't the first time, is it, with the Zoom client?
Well, not really, no. And I think, given Zoom's meteoric rise to the top of video conferencing during COVID, wasn't it? I mean, if any company rode the wave of world disaster, it was Zoom. And I mean that in the most uninsulting way. I just meant in the like, wow, household name overnight. But what came with that was then massive scrutiny of its platform, wasn't it?
Yeah, you could use some of that money to buy some security people.
Well, it was really, wasn't it? And during during DEF CON, which ran in Vegas this last week, wasn't it? Yeah, the Zoom updater for Mac OS was once again shown to have some exploits, that, as you say, and a vulnerability that could be exploited to give you entire root access effectively over your Mac.
They did, yeah.
But what was more troubling was some of these were supposed to have been fixed by Zoom.
Well, yeah, I mean, they were shown off by a guy called Patrick Wardle, weren't they, from Objective C, a non-profit foundation. But it's always down to how you handle this, isn't it? So he went to Zoom last December to responsibly disclose these bugs and provided code on how to fix it. He heard nothing for 7 months. So decided he was going to present, 7 months is more than enough. He's going to present at DEF CON. But then apparently a few weeks ago, before the event, Zoom issued an update that attempted to fix the initial bugs. I'm guessing this is because they might have seen his name on the event list. But anyway, their fix contained another bug that meant the vulnerability was still exploitable in a kind of more roundabout way. He also disclosed this to Zoom, who again didn't bother responding. But not surprisingly, after he did his presentation, a few days later, they'd given a fix that actually fixes the fix. But yeah, really not a good way to handle things.
Not really, is it? I mean, there's reasonable disclosure, isn't it? And I guess, to use the correct terminology, what is the correct terminology these days? Responsible hacker. I hate that word. Somebody security specialist. Does that responsible thing, gives time, you contact the organization, you state what you found, you're not necessarily asking for monetary response, you're asking for them to respond to the fact that there is a problem with their software and patch that. And usually, isn't it, you state that you're going to give, I think 90 days is usually the agreed minimum, isn't it, in most cases?
Exactly. Maybe a bit longer for a really serious one, or a bit less depending on the company.
But 7 months.
And nothing. Just didn't hear anything.
No.
He wasn't after a bug bounty or anything like that. Just responsible disclosure.
I mean, the way the new updater works was brilliant as well, wasn't it? So he gave a bit of an insight, isn't it? So the new updater package, which I noticed, by the way, that my Zoom client has updated itself, by the way. So it works, isn't it? The package moved to a location or directory owned by the root user. So technically speaking, most users don't have root access, so you can't change into that directory. And then because it's Mac OS is based on Unix. When that file is moved to another location, it carries over the same permissions, doesn't it? So if you move it to the position, it carries the same file permissions. So the same regular user or non-root user in this case can now modify that file, and you can swap out the contents. And that's what he did, wasn't it? So he modified that file to allow to use that, but exploit the vulnerability and then give access to it. And that current issue is still live in Zoom.
Oh well,
As of
the bug with their update, their fix, there was they introduced a new bug in the checking method. Basically, it means if you named the malware the same as the name of Zoom's signing certificate, it'd be enough to pass the test. So it wasn't actually checking whether the XP was signed;
No.
it was just checking what the name of it was.
No, but yeah, I should have caveat that it, what as you said, it was there, but the vulnerability was fixed in 5.115, which is the one that's come down. But yeah, it shouldn't take that, and it shouldn't take a DEF CON talk
Presentation, no,
to basically highlight, crap, we've not fixed it, you know. But
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, what's Zoom these days? The market cap must be, what's their market cap? Because they were riding really high, wasn't it? Oh, here we are. They're currently sat at just shy of $31 billion at the minute. But when you look at their year-to-date performance, well, their year-to-date performance has basically come from a high of 180 back in January, and is now around 103.
Yeah.
But
they could afford some security engineers to look over the code. They could actually afford a bug bounty program. You know, a team of people to handle those requests and actually answer emails.
And you think, given now how many organizations use Zoom, you know, we use Zoom. It is one of the main it's one of the main platforms we use. I was about to say we have Teams as well, but we don't use any video calling through Teams. So everything's done through Zoom. We use Slack as well. But I've worked with organizations where you've had Zoom and Teams as well. And the reason for doing that is, I don't know, customer X doesn't allow Zoom, so you can only use Teams, vice versa. And it's just, God, man, have some consistency, you know?
But then Zoom isn't a very good messaging platform. I worked at a company where Zoom was our messaging platform as well as our video conferencing platform, and that just wasn't very good.
No, so we use Slack for messaging. So that's Slack for messaging. Teams is being removed now. I think Teams is there, but it's not. But it's a sanctioned piece of software, but nobody, you're not meant to use it for anything. It's there to allow you to use if a client uses it. That makes sense.
Okay.
But we don't use it for anything business related, so to speak.
Gotcha.
But Slack is the messaging platform, for Federation. There's some, we can do that. But I have to say, I come from a Teams environment to the role I'm doing now into a pure Slack environment, which I used to before. I much prefer Slack.
Oh, really?
For pure messaging, Slack does that. To me, that's what Slack's designed for. Teams, where you get involved with the channels in Teams, all the teams, that's when it got messy. I just didn't like that at all. But
doesn't Slack have that function as well?
It does, yes. It does.
Has
you have channels. You have channels, again, which are pure chat. Whereas in Teams, a channel is got like all these tabs at the top, isn't it?
You can put
basically Office and SharePoint.
I like Teams. Obviously, we worked at the same company before. It just used Slack, and I didn't really get on with that. But still, it was better than Zoom.
For messaging. Yes, for messaging, I agree with you on that. Yes, there is. we can both have that as agreement. So so Zoom have patched another vulnerability. I wouldn't want to reset the clock too much, because let's be honest, that's going to happen again, isn't it?
It is. And
however,
we have another big one.
Which makes the Zoom one look, I don't know, weak.
This is actively exploited. It's not a great one. So back in beginning of August, the 8th, Twilio confirmed it had been hacked via a phishing campaign, and then multiple employees had handed over credentials. Not a good look. Twilio, if you don't know, is a messaging company that provides kind of like SMS gateway services. So that app developers and companies can send SMS messages without having to build out their own infrastructure themselves. But during that hack, the attackers managed to access apparently 125 accounts or company accounts. Well, now we know at least one of those companies affected, as Signal announced back on the 15th, so 2 days ago. The Twilio hack exposed phone numbers of roughly 1,900 of its users. Darn. Now, it's not as It's bad, but it's not as bad because it's Signal. Everything's encrypted. No data was accessed, but attackers
Yeah,
could
but
potentially use the verification code sent by Twilio to activate Signal on another device and therefore send and receive new Signal messages.
yeah, that's the problem. As you say, the encrypted messages is not the issue. It's now the fact that they can identify the phone numbers, isn't it, and who
Yep,
targeted.
and receive and send new ones to see what's actually going on. All these 1900 affected users will be notified via SMS, which sounds kind of odd.
Ironic. Yes.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so obviously this is clearly a very targeted account. Signal's got way more than 1900 users. So to go after just 1900 particularly rather than everything, they
Yeah.
knew
So
what they were
this,
doing.
I was just going to say, this is not a random
No.
targeted, let's go for Twilio. This is a targeted attack for specific data. And whilst that out of those 1900, there's been no information released on, country, people, anything specific
Yep.
to kind of give you intent. But to take a step back on this Twilio attack actually targeted Cloudflare as well, didn't it? So both Cloudflare and Twilio were targeted at the same
Yeah.
time, but in a very sophisticated attack. Well, sophisticated in the sense that it was highly targeted. It was very well executed from a phishing attempt.
Yep.
It turns out that the numbers came from a variety of numbers that had for employees, work and home numbers and family members apparently belonging to T-Mobile.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Cloudflare in particular had 76 employees who received the phishing message in the first minute. The domain had only been registered 40 minutes before, which therefore meant that it wasn't picked up by the domain protection that Cloudflare have. So they knew what they were doing.
They're doing that wrong.
Um,
You should be blocking anything that's less than 24 hours old.
Twilio
Therefore, blocking these,
themselves,
yeah.
Twilio themselves stated that based on many of the factors, we have reason to believe that the threat actors are well organized, sophisticated, methodical in their actions. We haven't yet identified the specific actors at work there, but working with law enforcement in their efforts. Socially engineered attacks are, by their nature, complex, advanced, and built to challenge even the most expensive fences. Now, Cloudflare themselves went on to explain what had happened and said they won't be disciplining any of the employees who fell for the attack. Because what they stated was that 3 Cloudflare employees fell for the phishing attack message, entered credentials on the SMSs, but Cloudflare don't use one-time codes. They use the FIDO2 compliant YubiKeys and other vendors.
Yeah.
The hard keys are tied to the users, so they can't be, even if you have a phishing attack like that, you can't grab them information off the key because it's designed to be binding, as you have one. So whilst the attacker or the threat actors did manage to get to the login systems and the compromised username passwords, they couldn't get past the hard key requirement. So Cloudflare stopped that. However, Twilio didn't.
No.
So, what Twilio and Cloudflare say, they don't understand where they got the numbers from, even though they were T-Mobile compromised. They don't know where the numbers came. It's a bit of a concern, but I think, as you say, the fact that they've gone through to Signal and those 1900 numbers have been exposed, you could point fingers any direction. It would be easy to point fingers at certain countries, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think at this stage, and it makes you wonder what they were going after. Because
I'm trying to who those 1900 users were.
Exactly, because it's not like 19,000. It's not 900, isn't it? It's
that's a small amount. I don't know how many users Signal have, but
I would say
that's like less than 1% of them.
Yeah, I would say the Signal probably have in the region of several million. I think I read somewhere before they were in the tens of millions. I'm sure
20 million active users as of December. As of December 2020, that's probably gone up a fair bit.
Yeah,
I imagine.
And I think, do you remember when the whole WhatsApp thing came up? There was a big push, wasn't there, to move away from WhatsApp?
Yeah, that was before 2020. So or after 2020, I should say. So I imagine those numbers have gone up quite a bit.
Yeah, so very concerning. The one thing that Signal asked people to do was enable registration lock, which means that you can't then set up Signal on a new device. Interestingly, I went into my Signal because I have got Signal on my phone, and I enabled that. Not that I'm worried about being, but I
No,
thought
but yeah,
actually that's not a bad idea.
it's like a 2FA. It asks you to set up a PIN that if you go to register a new device, you'll have to put the PIN in as well, not
Yeah,
just receive your SMS message.
no,
So
which is quite, it's another layer of security, isn't it? So
yeah.
on there, but yeah, very concerning. And
Mm.
definitely a much wider attack that's happening here, or happened, I should say, into that. And Cloudflare, well done in the fact that your employees have that extra bit of security software or hardware, I should say. But on the other hand, it proves no matter how good your security training is, no matter how good your processes and systems are, when you get was it the text messages that say things like from Twilio, notice, and login has been expired. Please tap twilio-sso.com to update your password. And the Cloudflare one was cloudflare-octa.com.
Huh. Okay.
Very close. When you think the most Okta, so the company I work for, it's company name .octa.com.
Yeah.
So if you weren't paying attention or you weren't reading it properly, cloudflare-octa.com looks pretty close, doesn't it?
Does don't put links in your messages. Tell your employees you won't get links in your messages about password bits.
No,
They should know how
no,
to set their own password. It should be part of your company training. They should know where to go. You log into your Okta or whatever, your normal portal. Don't ever follow a link from one.
indeed it does. Indeed. So moving away then from two large attacks to our favourite friend of a third, maybe an attack as such, but not a breach. More of a concern, isn't it?
Oh, here we go again. Meta,
Well, hi,
really?
Meta.
Well, there's some new information coming to light. So obviously, they weren't too happy when Apple locked down lots of privacy features, were they, on iOS? They lost a lot of money, so Meta have been skirting around it, and their apps, their Facebook and Instagram apps, have been injecting JavaScript code into third-party websites when accessed via the built-in browser within those apps, basically allowing you to track across websites.
Naughty, naughty.
Naughty, naughty. Well, yeah, naughty, naughty. Kind of Apple's fault. They've shot themselves in the foot there. They've not transitioned quick enough. So Apple have two frameworks for using a browser on iOS. One's an old what they call WebKit. I can't remember what the new privacy one is, but it's a newer privacy-focused one. But they're both still active. Now the old framework is more powerful and customizable, and basically allows you to do lots of other bits and pieces, like monitor exactly what's going on the web page, from inputs like what you put in your password in, the address, every tap you make. Because it's designed that you can use it to get analytics. But obviously, Meta, Facebook are abusing this now, and using it to track you everywhere you go.
But what makes me laugh here is Meta's response to this, though, isn't it?
Well, trust us. Is it one of those trust us ones, isn't it?
Well, Meta have said, isn't it? To frame the argument, isn't it? So the Open Web Advocacy stated that in-app browsers shouldn't be allowed to subvert a user choice of browser, and they were saying that both the mobile OS vendors should should enforce this from an OS level, isn't it? And they state that this is wrong, and that this isn't choice. Whereas Meta are basically like, oh no, you've misunderstood. No, we're not doing. What we're doing here is we built this code so we can honor people's app tracking transparency rules. So the ATT stuff, which is what there, isn't it? And we're honoring their choices on our platforms. And this code allows us to aggregate the data before it's used for targeting and advertising. So what we do is we're capturing it, then we can decide. Actually, oh no, they don't want us to track it. Excuse me.
How about
Sorry,
you see if they want you to track and then not collect it if they don't?
you can't
You're
do
doing
that.
this wrong way around, guys.
That's not how it does it. That's like, yeah, we've stolen your data. Then we'll decide whether we're going to leak it, just in case.
Yeah, you just tell us if you don't want us to, and we'll go and delete it afterwards. We're still going to carry on collecting it, though.
Again, this is, even Microsoft getting on the act here. So Microsoft have got a different argument here. Microsoft is saying that the real scandal actually isn't the fact of this. The fact is that it's using Facebook's in-app browser, and you haven't actually had a choice to use what browser you want. That came from one of the program partner managers at Microsoft Edge.
Please take his keyboard away from him.
I'd be like, yeah, basically, yeah, like you should be given any choice of browser you want. You shouldn't have to use the built-in one. No, you probably shouldn't. And it says that that's purely coincidental. That also has the effect of removing tracker blocking that real browsers might apply. Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
that's the point. If you are using Edge or Chrome or whatever, then
yeah,
they should respect the ATT, shouldn't they? The
yep,
ATT rules and that. But yeah, I mean, Meta I guess the problem is here. Meta are losing around, was it 10 billion in ad revenue this year,
yeah.
or stated to lose around that because of the privacy features that Apple brought in and Google have brought in, I should say. So
Yeah,
yeah, I guess they've got to find a way to reclaw that back, haven't they?
yeah. But every time I see Meta in a news article, I'm like, oh god, what
Oh,
now?
it's a classic.
It's
As in,
never a good article, is it? And
no,
I
it's
know
never.
news agencies want to have articles that make you read them, but it's them more than everyone else, isn't it? It's always Meta.
I mean, it's what you call clickbait, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is. But if there's ever something dodgy going on about practices and how you do stuff, it's always Meta that comes first.
Always Meta. Always Meta. I mean, it's just a shining example of how not to run a software company, isn't it? Um, but
Oh,
yes, injecting
yeah.
code. I mean, Apple are going to do their nut, aren't they? Because
Oh, take away their
I don't.
license on iOS.
Yeah, but
Take away the developer license.
yeah, but you pull the developer license from Meta. Just we're gonna have Epic versus Apple round two, aren't we?
Oh yeah, we will. Oh, I know.
Just to me, it's just rare. It's just a very slippery slope. But they'll learn. They'll learn. When you've been blocked and the door slammed in your face at every turn, yeah, you'll learn. You'll learn. But talking
Yeah.
of Meta, though, there is I guess another slight change from the talking of accounts perspective, isn't it? On the Quest software that
Yep.
we've been pushing for so long, haven't we?
Yeah, it's finally rolling out. So with the
Well,
V, kind of. We'll get to that in a minute. The V43 update. Well, basically, you'll no longer have to link your Oculus VR headset to a Facebook account.
woohoo!
It's a technicality of
Hold
the
on.
words there, but where is it? Yeah. Basically, a transition from a Facebook account to a Meta account. When it's your turn, of course, because while it's in the software update, it's a phased rollout. But there's a catch. So before you had your Oculus profile, didn't you? And then they
You
made
did.
you transition over to a Facebook account or link the two. Blah blah blah. So after now, we'll no longer have a Facebook account. We'll have a Meta account, you can optionally link it to a Facebook account, but you're now going to be required to link it to a Meta Horizon profile, which sounds like a Facebook account for VR, and it pretty
I
much
mean,
is. I mean, it's one step forward, 20 steps back.
to me,
Okay,
this is
great.
not.
It's not great.
It's not fixed. It's not
It's not a
fixed.
fix, but it's a fix for one problem. So there are a lot of people who got their headsets banned and basically became paperweights because their Facebook account wasn't in good standing. Facebook apparently like to just randomly turn off accounts, block them, shut them down, what
Yeah.
you want to call it.
Yeah.
That therefore basically bricked your headset. So that shouldn't be a problem anymore. And there'd been no way of contacting Facebook to get it re-enabled your account. Once it was done, that was it. You lost a 400 quid headset.
That's not how it should work, is it? At all.
No, not at all. So, I mean, that's one step forward. That's now no longer a problem, unless, of course, you get blocked in Meta Horizon. I know. Time will tell on that one.
It's just absolute utter tosh. Because to me, this should be the option of I don't want to sign any account. I
Yeah.
just want to use a headset. I don't want to be Meta. I don't want Facebook. I have no need for your applications. I don't want to play
I don't
any
want to
little
buy any.
worlds.
Yeah, I understand. I'll need an account if I want to buy any games from the Oculus store.
Fair play.
I understand. I get that one.
Yeah.
But if I
I
don't
don't
want to
want
buy any ones, why do I need an account?
exactly. I just want to get
Play my
on
games on there.
and play
They're
my
not from the
games.
Oculus store.
No. Not from the Oculus store. That's correct. Yeah. Slowly catchy monkey, isn't it? With better. It's just little bit further on, little bit
Just need
further
it.
on, and then when you're about to think you're gonna go, no, it's jumped again.
No.
Just absolute joke, isn't it? It's just a
Please,
game.
someone release a headset that's a competitor to the Oculus 2. I don't mind paying a little bit more money. Similar kind of quality, then I can ditch them.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Because they
That's
are
my
the best bang for a buck at the moment.
They are. They are. Personally speaking, for me, it's going to be. It's going to be a new headset next year. I think for me, if I can afford it. Not maybe. I don't mean especially new, but I mean as in away from the Quest ecosystem. It was a great introduction to VR. Really, really can't complain in that sense. But I just don't want to be associated with Meta or any of that crud anymore. Quite frankly,
No. I mean, I've got a Quest 2. I had the original Oculus, and that was getting very long in the tooth. And I had a very, very good deal on the Quest 2.
you did, yeah,
I did.
yeah.
So I had to create a Facebook account. That's it. It's just an account. There is nothing in it. But I'm always worried that, Facebook is just going to ban me, and there's my headset bricked.
Well, talking of jokers,
Yeah.
how do you fancy a M1 chip called the Baikal?
What, the Baikal M1, not an
The
Apple
Baikal-
M1.
No, I give you the Baikal N1 processor all the way from our friends in Russia. So Russian,
Yes.
So the Russian company BitBlaze, who is a homegrown company who make pretty much every kind of IT equipment, servers, storage platforms, as well as laptops and workstations, have just announced, haven't they, their Titan BM15 laptop, which is going to be based around the new Baikal M1 ARM chip.
You're saying new.
Well,
I mean, I was looking at this just as a curiosity because obviously it's a blatant rip-off of the Apple's M1 chip, but it is based on ARM. I'll give some credit there.
Well,
but wow. I mean, it's an 8-core ARM A57. Yes, the same A57 from 2012. 1.5 gigahertz, 8-core, 8 meg LFE cache. It's sporting an ARM Mali T628 GPU from 2013. No idea what VRAM that's got. I couldn't figure that one out.
No.
It supports dual display, so the same problem Apple's got.
Well, at least there's something in common then, isn't
Something about it. It's leveled the field there. It's based on TSMC's 28 nanometer.
But
It's TSMC. TSMC aren't allowed to sell to Russia.
No, and they have
for quite some time.
No, and according to Baikal, though, the laptop itself, as you say, is a blatant rip-off of a Mac, effectively, isn't it? In chassis design,
I can't work that out. The initial
two
images
pictures
look like a kind of MacBook, old style MacBook Pro, but then they showed their prototype, and it looks like a netbook from 2012.
But it's badly photoshopped because the woman holding it, if you look at the BitBlaze logo, it's blurry.
Oh right.
And it appears to be running Word. And it's just terrible. But apparently it will have up to 16 gig of DDR4.
It can be up to 128 gig.
Yes, it comes with 16 gig. My apologies. Up to 128 gig of DDR4, and then anywhere between 250 gig to 512 of M2 SSD, isn't it? And plus all the other bells and whistles, including a 3.5 audio jack. So, well, fair play to you.
Is that M2 or NVMe? I'm guessing it's M2.
M2 SSD.
I'm guessing it's SATA SSD.
Chugga.
I mean, if we've sold it to you already, it's due out in November, allegedly, if they can figure out how to get the chips. Here's the price. It's starting somewhere between, they've not nailed down the price yet, between $1,375 up to $1,650 for the base model without tax.
I mean, what am I paying for here? Because
now you could buy a very nice MacBook Air with an M2 in there for that.
Even with the rubbish single NAND chip, that's going to be faster than this.
Yeah, it is. Cheaper.
It's just a joke. I mean, don't get me wrong. Their choices are very limited at the moment. Very limited.
Yeah, well, I don't even think they can ship this one, can they?
Well, not if TSMC
not only is TSMC not selling it to them, Taiwan has stopped all exports of anything over 25 hertz to them, haven't they?
You can run a radio on that, maybe. I think.
So maybe on eight be an 8-core ARM A57 running at 25 hertz. I don't know.
I just, it's just a joke, isn't it? I mean, what makes me laugh is that people will read this, or in
Yeah.
in the domestic market, and believe that this is a fantastic, um,
Yeah.
a fantastic piece of kit, and that this is great on it, because propaganda. Propaganda is brilliant, isn't it? It's just, I guess flattery, isn't it? Is the what's it? What do they say? It's flattery.
Flatter is the sincere. No, it's
No, sarcasm isn't it? Serious for flattery, isn't it? That one? No,
no,
I can't
no.
remember what it is. Oh, I can't remember. But I mean, it's just flattery, is it? Absolute
Imitation
flattery.
is the sincerest form of
That's
flattery.
thank
That's the
you,
one.
thank you. I knew, it's been a long day. That's the one I'm thinking of. But I mean, by imitation, it's not even imitation. It's terrible.
It's a poor
I
man's
mean,
knockoff.
if you're gonna try and knock it off, at least do it decently. At least if this was a Chinese company, it would look like a Mac. It probably would, to a degree, run like one. It just might cook you, as it ran. But I mean, God, it's just absolutely. But a 1.5 gig A57. I mean, oh dear, oh dear.
It's
Well,
actually going to be slower than your phone.
yes, it will be slower than the phone.
Considerably slower than your phone.
Considerably slower than your phone.
Because that was a mobile chip in 2012.
Yeah, back in 2012, it was quite well spec'd, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Not now.
No. I say we don't
Well,
know what OS it'll be running because it
no,
can't be Windows.
it can't be
no,
Windows,
It'll probably be a hooky copy of it. But
well,
Windows
what was the? I think we
have their
mentioned
own version of Linux, don't they? Their
they
own
do,
OS.
don't they? They do have their own version of Linux. I can't remember what it's called.
So maybe it was Linux running Wine to do emulation enough to run Word. Or maybe you're right, it was just photoshopped.
Sorry, I just the vision of this thing is just hilarious. Well, talking of Apple themselves, then iOS 16 beta 6 has now dropped. So this is the real deal, not iOS or iOS iOS beta 6, iOS 16, excuse me, beta 6, and of course its friend and compadre iPad OS 16 beta 6 have also dropped. Now I can't remember what public beta that is. These are dev betas, just to be clear. Public beta, what are you on now? 3 or 4?
Oh, I'm not on the public beta. Sorry, I am on my iPad, but I've not upgraded it because I didn't get the new lock screen, so I just haven't bothered.
Well, I'm not playing this game. Goodbye.
No.
Well, anyway, for those of us that are running the beta game, I have to say it is pretty rock solid. Though I did have, for the first time ever, I think I said this to you off air privately, I had the first ever crash of an iPhone, which was done a couple of weeks ago. I cut a screen copy. It says your system experienced a crash. It was after it rebooted. That was on the 6th of August. So that was 10 days ago. And since then, we've updated to beta 6, which is only dropped a week later than beta 5. So Apple are moving into top gear now, as I think we are targeting a early September release. I wouldn't be surprised, given that last year iOS 15 did drop before the phones, didn't it? I think we're looking at an on-planned date release for September. It's pretty stable. There's a great Reddit thread that we've used a couple of years running now, where there's a Google Sheets Apple iOS 16 beta app compatibility list, which has got like thousands of apps listed. I'm annoyed though, because in the years gone by, somebody's gone in there and filtered everything by the betas, but it hasn't done that since. Somebody hasn't. It's got a bit messy.
Somebody seems to add the filter fields at the top, don't they?
Yeah, somebody's there. But it's really useful if you're looking for an app to now. The one app that still doesn't work, which you and I just quite frankly give up on now, is the HSBC banking app here in the UK. That just doesn't seem to like betas whatsoever. I think they obviously must have something in there around looking for app versions, mustn't they?
I might have to just move bank.
Well, I was thinking that, quite frankly.
Why are you closing your account, Mr. Seaton? Wow.
It's rubbish.
Because you don't support the iOS betas. Yeah. What is this? 2010?
I mean, Barclays, who I bank with, gosh, probably shouldn't say that, now I'm going to get hacked. And the other challenger bank that you bank with, both
No problem
both of
whatsoever.
no problems whatsoever. um but yeah, touchwood, nearly other, I don't think I've got any other applications on there that I've come across yet that have had any major issues. I've had a couple of little crashes with a couple of apps, but again, nothing that would make me think this is a major problem. um
No.
so I'm quite pleased with that. So I know the lock screens work fine. I've got that on here. I've done much with the widgets. The messaging stuff is quite handy in terms of the ability to add in the new capabilities in the mail app that we've talked about, the new functionalities, the messaging unsend piece. I haven't been able to test that yet. I also haven't been able to do the shared photo albums. That the
Okay. Yep.
because nobody else I know who I share photos with is on iOS 16 yet. So that's going to be a
Oh.
coming piece. But some nice updates to things like the notification screens. I've kind of got used to that now. The Android style notifications, the music player and podcast mini players on the lock screen work really well now as good. I've
Yep.
not seen the other major things yet around CarPlay. Nothing
No.
there on CarPlay yet. But again, I think a lot of the stuff that we're going to see is going to be related to the next generation hardware. I think iOS 14 will bring in some of the things.
And you won't get all the features to start off with. This is kind of a reoccurrence of Apple now, so you
Yeah,
might just start to get them by the next software OS update.
yeah, exactly. It's just not yet, is it? So we'll see. But what I will say though is Apple just gets stronger and stronger with the betas. There
Yeah.
was a time when betas were well, they
Ooh.
were betas,
Wow.
and like
Yeah.
it
Proper
was
beaters.
chilling, to run them. Now it's not that case at all. I don't see
No.
that. I think that they're far stronger now. Is it something that I'd recommend everybody does? No, of course not. But for people like you and I who are able to run betas and live with the
Yeah.
consequences, again, I certainly didn't jump in on beta 1 here. I think I went into beta 2 or 3. But again, at that point, they're pretty rock solid. I mean, my personal view is once they start dropping public betas,
Yeah.
that's usually a good place to be.
It is. Yeah.
So then, last story of the week then. Slightly different one, isn't it? And we've got no Rumour Mill this week, I must state. We're holding off this week for Rumour Mill. Rumour Mill will be back next week. What we do have, though, is talk about, the successor for Concord, isn't it? Which is the
It
new
is.
Boom,
Boom.
Overture by
Bye, boom.
Boom, isn't it? Yes, that's right.
It sounds like a
Color,
speaker.
it does. The latest Boom by Overture is
Yeah.
a Concorde successor, which has been designed in the US, and is Boom is a company based in Colorado. It's a startup, isn't it?
Mm,
Everybody a startup these days, aren't
of
they?
course they are.
Who are designing a supersonic aircraft that they say will be able to fly between London and New York in around 3.5 hours. And
Not quite as fast as Concorde then.
no, just gonna good point. And Los Angeles to Sydney, which is around 15 hours, give or take, in 6 hours 45 minutes. But they have got a lot of backers at the minute, haven't they? And
Ah,
American Airlines are the latest of the big airlines to back them.
they did. They
Uh,
purchased or put down a deposit on 20 jets, didn't they?
they have indeed, alongside 15 jets that United Airlines have, as you say, put an offer down. They've also got an option for 35 following safety testing. They've also got memorandums of understandings. That's kind of like, isn't it, a partnership deal with Rolls-Royce, the US Air Force, and $270 million in funding has come from the Virgin Group and Japan
Yeah. I
Airlines.
think they were
I
one of
did,
the first, weren't they, Virgin to back
yeah.
them.
So this overture aircraft, then,
Yep.
as you say, Concorde successor, around 205 feet long. It's going to cruise around 60,000 feet, which is similar to where Concorde
Yep.
cruised as well. So it's a much smoother flight up that edge, above all of the weather patterns, most of the turbulence, if any. It will have a cruising speed of Mach 1.7. Now, as you said, that is slower than Concorde, because Concorde's cruising speed,
2.04.
well, there you go. There you go. It was a lot higher, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And Concorde had the famous screen inside that showed you what max speed you're at, and that cruising speed of it was around 1,330 miles per hour. Pretty quick, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean the images of this new aircraft. She's a pretty bird.
They are pretty, very unique design, isn't it?
The
Very,
wings, they're
sharp edge,
kind of curved, aren't they?
curved design, very low tail thing. Engines are mounted underneath in very cylindrical engine mountings, almost what kind
Yeah,
of I like to think like 1950s kind of idea of what a supersonic jet would look like.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
We're a way off though, aren't we? So
yes.
they're meant to start rolling off the production line in 2025. Won't be able to carry passengers until 2029.
No, and they meant to have had their XB1 demonstrator was meant to have had flights 5 years ago, and
Hmm.
they were meant to be flying by now. So it hasn't done it. Though it is doing taxi tests in the US at the moment. They are hoping to fly it this year, but no dates have been given on that. The company have stated though that the demonstrator is behind schedule, not the main commercial aircraft. But surely, though, if your demonstrator is behind schedule, your main aircraft is definitely behind schedule.
I
Because
would have thought so.
how can you have, how can you go to commercial production if you've not proven it? You know. Uh, but this is interesting because the whole reason Concorde, I don't say failed. Concorde didn't really fail. Concorde didn't succeed into the 21st century because of several reasons. One, the extortionate cost of the tickets.
Yep.
It was catering to a specific class of passenger, wasn't it? First class only. $10,000 plus a ticket. The fact that you could commute to New York back in a day. I mean, that's stuff of dreams, isn't
Amazing,
it?
yeah.
But it also the engines on the Concorde were the 1950s designed Olympus engines, which were full reheat after burning. Beautiful, beautiful. Not particularly clean in the 21st century.
No, very noisy.
Also, the Concorde was a 1950s designed aircraft itself.
It was,
Built
yeah.
with built with slide rule, coming off the production line in the 60s. Tested through the early 70s and went into production and commercial success in the late 70s, and obviously before ending its commercial life in the 2000s, which I think was 2002, 2003, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Obviously, following that tragic accident in 2001 in France. But supersonic transport is like, it's kind of a bit like putting man on the moon, isn't it? It's something
Yeah.
we've done before, but we kind of haven't gone back to it.
It was
You know,
a sad day, that last flight. It was a massive step back for aviation.
it was, in terms of the technology there, we haven't done it. Granted, aviation is certainly much safer than it was in Concorde's heyday, I think is a good thing to
Yep.
say. It's certainly cleaner than after burning, after burning,
Yeah.
Also, the thing I didn't mention was that the US didn't allow supersonic flights over the continental United States. So
Nope.
you kind of killed a route between New York and Los Angeles.
Yep.
So
But in all
that
fairness, we
also,
didn't allow it over the UK either. It didn't go supersonic till it was over the water.
no, granted. So the difference is here that Boom are going to say that the Overture is going to be a quieter jet, isn't it? And
Yeah.
also more cleaner running fuel. But I'm interested to see it. So we'll keep an eye on this because I think this is certainly a story we want to watch. NASA also themselves have got the X-59 Quest prototype, which they're going to test over US cities as well. So the supersonic flight is coming back. So it's definitely on its way back.
Maybe one day we
Well,
get to go on one.
maybe one day. But I guess that's probably a good place for us to wrap up the show on that dream. So, of course, you can find us online at techrant.online, where all of our show notes are posted, all the information. We're on Twitter at Weekly Tech Rant. We welcome your comments, your views, your likes. Tell your friends about us. And we will be back next week for episode 101. I can't believe I'm saying that. We've been doing this for 2 years now. We are going to carry on doing this for maybe another 2 years, maybe more. Hopefully, that is the plan. So thank you for everybody that has continued to listen to us. We really value your listenership. I think that's the right word. Your subscription. We're not selling anything. Maybe we might get ads one day, but at the moment we're still ad free. But on that note, I've been Jay.
I've been Carl. Have a good evening, all.